Well, hello YouTube, it's me Fortmaster, and welcome back to another film theory reaction. So, today's video is player 456 is actually broke in Squid Game? Yeah, as I said before in the last Squid Game video they did where they were talking about how to win the various games, I never actually watched Squid Game, and I haven't seen the second season. Mainly because, well, I mean, it partially falls into that whole category of, oh, it's really popular, and, you know, because of that, and because everybody says it's good, I don't want to see it. Though it also just falls into the whole thing where, like, I look at the show, and I've seen, you know, a fair number of clips online, and it just really doesn't, you know, the whole death game aspect, it doesn't really intrigue me. I don't really seem to get enjoyment out of that. Now, that being said, I do love seeing all the parodies and jokes and stuff people have made about Squid Games online, so those are always funny. But from what I understand, season 2, I don't know his name. The guy from the first season went back into the games to basically break them, try to ruin the games by trying to save as many people as possible, so they all have to be paid out their reward. Since, as it was stated before, Squid Game isn't the type of game where only one person can win. It's where anybody who survives wins. It's just the prize gets bigger the more people who die. But yeah, player 456, you know, the winner of the first season of Squid Games, at least the first season of the show, are they honestly saying that, like, he somehow spent all of the money he won in the first season? Like, was it stolen, or... Like, honestly, I don't know how that'd be possible. Like, oh god, how much money, I'm forgetting, how much money did he actually win in the first season? 45.6 billion won, and, I mean, that's the equivalent of, like, 31.5 million US dollars, which, I mean, if I convert it to my Canadian dollars, that's $45.7 million as well. I mean, granted, you're not going to be entering, like, the top echelons of the world's elite or something like that, but, like, that's still more money than the vast majority of people on the planet make in their entire lifetimes. How do you go through that in, like, what, the 2 years between season 1 and season 2? Unless this guy had some serious debts, or, actually thinking about it, so either, like, very serious debts, B, could potentially be, you know, putting in the stock market and just utterly failing, or C, maybe he spent it all trying to find, like, hiring private investigators to find the other people running Squid Game so he could try to, like, assassinate them or something like that. And then afterwards, once he spent all his money and lost it, that's when he decided, oh god, I'm gonna have to go back into the game and I'll try to, you know, fix the results that way? I don't know. Again, I'm just trying to wrap my head around losing that much money. Besides, like, potentially it being stolen from him, or just not being given to him in the first place, I don't know how you go through that much money in like, that short a time. So, I mean, yeah, other than that, just gonna get into the video and see what kind of proof they have for this claim. So, yeah, of course, as always, original video is linked in the description if you haven't seen it yet for some reason. Corner video lead to my game theory reaction, and if you like any of the videos I make, just remember to leave a like and subscribe, because, you know, that always helps the algorithm and helps the channel grow. But yeah, with all that out of the way, let's get this thing started then, shall we?
Is player 456 from Squid Game actually broke? Yeah, okay, I hear you saying. We see just how wealthy he is in the show, spending the prize money he won in the games. How could he possibly be broke? But that's just it, friends. Gi-hun spends a lot of money. Like, a lot of money very, very quickly. Enough that I have to again ask, would Gi-hun actually be broke? Well, the answer is going to tell us a lot about this character and the dark path that he's walking down. Hello, Internet! Welcome to Film Theory, the show that's played these games before.
I played these games before! I said I played these games before!
This show's also feeling a bit under the weather at the moment. I only get sick about once a year, but it's always rough, so sorry about the voice. Anyway, so
I
Squid
honestly
Game.
can't tell a difference.
The latest season of this enormous Netflix hit is finally out, and everyone's talking about it. You, me, Duolingo, the guy in front of you in line at the gas station, everyone. And that makes a lot of sense when you realize that in just the few weeks it's been out, Squid Game Season 2 is already Netflix's third most viewed season of TV ever, behind only Wednesday and Squid Game Season 1. People love this series, and I bet that Season 3 is also going to be on this chart. And that we're eventually going to be getting a ton of other spin-offs. Squid Game 1985, Squid Game America, Squid Game in Space. Yeah, Netflix is going to be ignoring the message of this show and milking it until the end of time. Real quick though, American Squid Game with American schoolyard games would actually be a lot of fun. Like, imagine Dodgeball or The Floor is Lava. Should I do a theory predicting that? Like, please leave your thoughts in the comments and subscribe so you know if we eventually do that one. If you don't know, Squid Game is all about a competition where desperate people compete in children's playground games for a cash prize. But if they lose, they die. This latest season follows Gi-hun, the only survivor from Season 1, as he uses his winnings to try to track down and put an end to the games once and for all. And let me tell you, Gi-hun won a ton of money from the games. 45.6 billion won, or about $31.4 million to be exact. That's a life-changing amount of money for anyone, but
yeah, as I said,
it's not an infinite amount of money. And here's the thing, loyal theorists, Gi-hun does not shy away from using his hard-won cash, burning through tons and tons by settling his debts, stocking up on weaponry, buying real estate, hiring dozens of people to track down the sales.
Oh geez, okay. So that clip, I assume, he bought, several normal size apartments and broke the walls throughout them so you'd have one bigger space as like a base or whatever. It was funny. Back in my childhood house, we lived in like one of those row houses. Like it was like over 100 years old, but it was like 4 very narrow 3-story houses, that were built connected like that. And I remember, like, that was the one thing about that house was that, again, it was very narrow. I think the entire property was like 14 or 15 feet wide. So we were on friendly terms with a lot of our neighbors. Except, like, the guy right next to us, like, there were a pair of brothers that lived there. One of them was really nice, one of them was a jerk. And my parents always joked about, like, eventually, if they moved out or something, they'd buy the house and remove the walls between the 2 houses. So we'd have, like, one big house. Oh god, that brings back memories.
For months at a time. That was a pretty big red flag for me because a lot of people who suddenly come into money end up spending all of it. 78% of NFL athletes file for bankruptcy within just 2 years of retiring, and some sources estimate that nearly 70% of lottery winners do the same. So today, I want to find out, would Gi-hun be broke? If we counted up all the money we see him spending, find the price of all the items we see him using in this new season, how much would it cost? And could his 45.6 billion won prize money actually cover all of it? Well, after digging into it, the answer surprised me a bit, and it's gonna tell us a lot about Gi-hun as a character and where his story is going in Season 3. So strap in, loyal theorists, we're hiring a small army of goons and tracking down this answer.
Okay, so it's surprising. I'm trying to think of what's more surprising. It's gonna be like a lot cheaper than first imagined, or much more expensive. Because I mean, I can obviously it being, much more expensive, but it potentially being much less expensive and more affordable to do all the stuff he's doing. Granted, I mean, this is also in, South Korea, so I know the whole financial situation isn't the same as it is over here in Canada or America.
Now, before we get started, we need to know exactly how much Gi-hun started out with. Like, yeah, he won 45.6 billion won from the games, but when you have money, that money makes money. It's all about the interest, baby. Yeah, yep. Gi-hun didn't touch his winnings for a year after the games, and I mean, who could blame him after seeing his friends all get killed right in front of his eyes? That means that his winnings sat in an account and did very little. The bank even bothered him about this.
You've got all your money set up in a normal savings account. You aren't earning all that much interest on it.
Huh, did you catch that? Gi-hun wasn't earning all that much interest, but he was still getting something. For South Korean banks, the base interest rate for a savings account is 0.1%. So after a year of sitting there, Gi-hun's 45.6 billion won would have gotten him an additional 456 million won. That's about $313,000, leaving him now with a starting total of 46 million won. So now that we know that, what did he spend it on? Just to get some of the smaller things out of the way, we know that Gi-hun started fresh at the end of Season 1 by getting fresh. He gets a new haircut, dyes it, and purchases a suit, all before getting a plane ticket from Seoul, South Korea to Los Angeles, California.
Jeez, okay, yeah, that's part of the thing. I keep forgetting that with like a lot of the Asian currencies, or specifically, like, actually, how does thinking about, does Chinese money have denominations? Because I know with like Japanese yen and apparently also with the Korean won here, they're essentially like the equivalent of cents almost. Like you look here, 1,000,000 won is equivalent to $700. Wow, okay.
To see his daughter. We also see in season 2 that he's driving what looks like a 2012 Hyundai Santa Fe, which I'm assuming he bought instead of rented.
I mean, granted, it's 2012, so it's 10 years old, but still being able to get a car for $5,000. Again, this is American dollars. I keep having to remind myself of that.
In the grand scheme of things, these are pretty minor purchases and would only really account for about 9.52 million won, or just over $6,500. Chump change, if we're being honest, especially compared with his first huge expense. In season 1, Gi-hun says,
I'd pay my debt off first.
which makes sense because Gi-hun owes a lot of money. Like, a lot of money.
160 million won owed just to loan sharks, and you owe 250 more to the bank.
Yeah, between the bank and the loan sharks, Gi-hun is a staggering 410 million won, or $281,000 in debt. And that's without even counting the interest. So let's count the interest. Starting with the banks, we know Gi-hun took out loans to start a small business, a chicken shop and a small snack bar, both of which failed. Typical interest rates for similar small business loans in South Korea are about 3.25%. So in the year between the salesman laying out Gi-hun's debts and when he paid it off after the games, he'd owe the bank an additional 8 million won, or about $5,500. But figuring out how much interest he'd owe the loan sharks is going to be a little bit trickier here. Thankfully for us, and unfortunately for other people, there is data we can pull for this. Ever since the pandemic, a lot of loan sharks have really thrived off the economic insecurity of others, lending money to those vulnerable at exorbitant rates, some as high as 200% interest. Given Gi-hun's
200%? Oh god, that is absolutely terrifying!
aggressive run-in with the loan sharks earlier in the series, we're going to assume that he was forced to pay that insane rate of 200%, increasing his debt from 160 million won to 320 million won. That's almost $220,000. So, all in all, Gi-hun paid a total of 578 million won, $396,000 to clear his debts. But those aren't the only debts he settled. Just before he died, Gi-hun's childhood friend Seong Woo, player 218, made a request of Gi-hun. Seong Woo wants Gi-hun to help his mother, and boy does Gi-hun deliver. Before leaving to see his daughter, Gi-hun drops off an airline luggage suitcase full of cold hard cash and a note reading, "It's the money I owe Seong Woo." Now, I've seen a lot of folks online theorizing that Gi-hun paid her half of the prize money, but I don't think that's the case. Like, you're not about to fit 22.8 billion won in a Delta Airlines carry-on. So
yeah, I mean, that's definitely a lot. So wait, what were those? Those were like 50,000 won bills or something like that, or 5,000 won bills? So I mean, at that point, you just have to do the math and calculate the thickness.
How much money is in this suitcase? Well, we're gonna have to do some quick math to figure it out. Just looking at the suitcase when it's opened, we can see that there's bands of money stacked.
Okay, yeah, it is 50 million.
2 columns by 6 rows on both sides of the suitcase. But how many bands deep are these stacks? Well, individual bills are about 0.0043 inches thick. That's about 0.11 millimeters. Bundles of cash like this are known as currency straps and typically hold 100 notes. So a band of 100 would be 0.43 inches thick. We'll just round that up to half an inch to account for the band material holding them together and the air between the bills. Most suitcases like these are usually about 9 inches thick, while the hard shell of these sorts of suitcases are usually 12 to 15 millimeters thick, or about half an inch. So a full inch for both sides. That leaves us about 8 inches of space inside the suitcase. So using that knowledge, we can figure out that these stacks are 8 bands deep on both sides of the suitcase, giving us a total number of 192 bands inside. We can see that these are 50,000 won notes, so each strap is worth 5 million won, meaning that there's a total of 960 million won in here. Hell, we see that Gi-hun also stuffed some other stacks in the smallest spaces in the side of the suitcase, so let's make it an even billion won, or $685,000.
Jeez, I mean, again, like, just giving somebody, like, that much money, like, that would solve so many problems.
But Gi-hun may have done even more to help out Sang-woo's mother. See, Sang-woo, like Gi-hun, was deep in debt.
6 billion won.
6 billion?
So far in debt that he was putting his mother's properties and shop up as collateral, and she lost everything because of it. Considering that Sang-woo entered the games to pay off that debt, I'm assuming that 6 billion won was still outstanding. And if Gi-hun is really going to take care of Sang-woo's mother, he probably paid it off so she could open up a new shop and thrive just like we see in Season 2.
Okay, yeah, so, it wasn't so much just the day-to-day living expenses or, the preparations he did at the beginning. Well, it's all the paying off of debts and stuff like that that's really eating into his winnings. Though then again, oh, God. But at the same time, we're not even halfway through the video yet, so there's still a lot more stuff he could have bought. Well, not could have. He has bought, I would assume. Oh, God, where is this going to go? Okay, I'm going to laugh, actually. I'm going to take a wild guess here and say that by the end of this, he's going to be left with, a single won left to his name. I'm calling it here.
So, adding that in, that's a total of 7 billion won, $4.8 million that Gi-hun spent to help Sang-woo's mother. And finally, we know that Sang-woo's family wasn't the only one he helped with the cash earned from the Squid Game.
Yeah, here we go
also
again.
paid a smuggler to get Se-byok's mother out of North Korea. In Season 1, this was quoted at costing a pretty penny.
Oh, I'd say around 40 million or so won.
Which we know that Gi-hun actually overpaid for, thanks to Season 2.
If the problem is money, I can get you more.
No. Last time you gave me more than enough money.
So we're gonna actually round that up to 45 million won, or about $31,000, since Gi-hun gave the smuggler more than enough money. Whew, so that's a lot of big numbers I just threw out at you, so let's take a breather and see where Gi-hun is.
Let's check the math, yeah.
Just by the end of Season 1,
I haven't been keeping track at all in my head.
Fulfilling the dying wishes of his friends from the games, and spending a little bit on himself, Gi-hun has spent a staggering 7,632,520,000 won, or $5,237,000.
I'm just, you have to wonder, what's going on at his bank? Because, they watched, he was talking with, a bank teller or a bank employee. He sat on that money for a year without touching it. And then all of a sudden, almost, I would imagine, comparatively, almost all at once, he pulls out over 7.5 billion won. I really have to wonder what's going on with what's going on at the bank.
That's almost 20% of the prize money, and we haven't even gotten into the craziest stuff yet. How? Why? Well, that's because Gi-hun basically hired his own army of private detectives. Yeah, by the beginning of Season 2, we learned that Gi-hun has not only paid back his loan shark, but has also hired him to help find the salesman. And he is going hard on that manhunt.
We checked. All the subway stations, still nothing. We've been searching for 2 years, and there's still no sign of him.
Yeah, they've been searching for the salesman on and off for 2 years. That's a ton of time to be going subway station to subway station, or waiting on a bench looking for a guy playing a schoolyard game with strangers. But it's not just the loan shark looking, he's also spearheading a group of 9 other guys also on the hunt, so 10 in total. So how much would Gi-hun be paying these guys? Well, obviously we can't say for sure, but we do get a bit of a clue when the loan shark berates one of his workers.
You're down here in the middle of summer in this nice AC, making easy money sitting on your... You don't like it? Then go ahead, work construction.
The loan shark is saying that this job is somewhat comparable to construction, but way easier. Korean construction workers in the Seoul area earn about 42 million won, or $30,000 a year, coming out at roughly $15 an hour. We're gonna be generous in saying that Gi-hun is paying each of these guys 30,000 won, or $20 an hour, so they don't go looking for other work. So,
I really have to wonder. I mean, I would assume, he's not stupid, so he knows that it would be hard, and it may take a while to, find the guy he's looking for. So I wonder, has he invested the money at all so he has, some measure of income coming in to, help support this stuff? Because honestly, if I was in his shoes, that'd be the first thing I'd do, obviously, pay off the debts. Then I'd take the remains and split them in half. Have the first half just act as immediate, money on hand to pay the people I'm hiring. And then the other half going off to, invest and start having those, dividends coming in to help, shore up reserves and stuff like that. Though then again, I don't know if that's a smart thing to do, but, What do you know?
Oh, okay, that's the rate we're gonna say, but how long have they been working? Well, it's a bit unclear just how long this group has been searching for the salesman. One of the guys hired by the loan shark says that
We've had our boys searching the whole subway system all summer long.
this, combined with Gi-hun mentioning that the salesman found him around this time,
It was around this time of year. If I miss this opportunity, then that's a whole nother year I have to wait.
means that the manhunt probably only happened during the 3 months of summer, so every day for 6 months in total during the past 2 years. If Gi-hun has been paying for these guys for 12-hour days,
When'd you search?
10 in the morning till 10 at night.
at that rate of 30,000 won an hour, that means that in total he paid these guys at least 655 million won, or just about $450,000. That is a lot of cash, and it gets even more intense when Gi-hun ups the group searching to a 44-man team, monitoring the subways for the entire time they're open, from 6 a.m. to midnight, 18 hours a day. We can see from the calendars in this episode that this part of the manhunt goes from June 19th until August 31st, so 74 days. Using the same
God,
math,
this is
that's an
really
additional
starting to add up now.
1.758 billion won, or $1.229 million. And on top of that, Gi-hun also promises another 1 billion won, about $685,000, as a reward for finding the salesman.
If we find that duck cheek link piece of Song said we get a 1 billion won reward.
Which we will assume that he pays out since they do end up finding him. All in all, just to track down the salesman, Gi-hun burned 3.413 billion won, or $2.386 million.
Okay, I mean, granted, that's a lot, but it is only like half the amount that he spent off, like, paying his and his various friends' debts. So, I mean, he originally won, like, what, 45 billion? 45.6 billion? So, currently, he's spent about, like, 10 to 11 billion. And that's before the show's even begun, or before he's entered the game again. So, still have about 30 billion left to burn through.
And mind you, it wasn't like Gi-hun was just twiddling his thumbs, waiting for a call from these guys searching the subways 24/7. Oh no, he was preparing, stocking up on guns and ammo to make sure he was ready to take on the people running the games. But here's the thing, this is actually very impressive in South Korea. See, South Korea has strict gun control laws, and that means that to this day, it's difficult to get your hands on any firearms, which drives up their price on the black market.
As opposed to
an
some places in the
degree.
world.
By how much? Well, that was a bit tricky to put an exact number on because, frankly, I don't know how to deep dive into the Korean black market to find prices of illegal firearms.
I mean, if you did, I think you could find much more lucrative forms of business than being a YouTube personality.
I'm already on so many watch lists from what I have to research for this job. That was not another one I needed on my back. But I was able to find this article that laid out the price of assault rifles on the black market in Australia, which has similarly tight regulations. This claims that assault weapons can cost upwards of $15,000 or 21.9 million won each. The price of pistols is similarly tricky to track down, but I did find some South Korean pistols that were valued at $530 each here in the United States. Assault weapons typically sell for about $1,000 here in the States, which is just about double the price of that pistol. This is an incredibly rough estimate, but we'll assume that the pistols on the black market are also worth about half as much as an assault weapon, so about 10.95 million won, or $7,500 each. Judging from the scene where we
Again, it might be just my North American brain here, but I am still not used to hearing, prices of comparatively normal things in the literal millions.
Gi-hun's collection of weaponry in his hotel bathroom, he has about 10 handguns, 30 assault rifles, and just buckets of ammunition. The weaponry here alone would cost 766.5 million won. That's a ton, and we're just gonna say
that's
that
only
the
in a
ammunition
hotel
for all of
room.
these guns would round this up to an even billion won. But the craziest thing about that last paragraph, well, remember how I said that all of these guns were in Gi-hun's hotel bathroom? Well, I meant that literally. This is Gi-hun's bathroom, as in he has to own the building for a number of reasons. First of all, he's the only tenant we ever see, and no one else can even get in. Secondly, we see that he owns and runs all of the security for the building. And thirdly, we see Gi-hun and his team firing their guns in the hotel. There's no way they're going to be able to get away with that if they just rented a floor. Nah, Gi-hun has...
Yeah, renting the floor and then blasting the walls up between the rooms. I don't think you'd be able to do that.
to own this whole building, and that would make this the single biggest expense that he has. See, while the show paints this hotel as a dingy, rundown, ragtag building that Gi-hun probably acquired on the cheap, that couldn't be further from the truth. Real estate is expensive, kids. This hotel is actually a real building that very much exists in the real world, and this can give us a very good idea of just how much Gi-hun would have needed to spend on it. See, this building is in Seoul, the capital city of South Korea, and it's one of the largest cities in the world. Like, for real, it beats out both London and San Francisco in terms of population. If you took all the people in New York City, added another 2 million people, and then reduced the size by 70 square miles, bam, you get Seoul. And because of that, getting any sort of real estate in the greater Seoul metropolitan area is gonna cost you a pretty penny. Not only that, but this hotel is located in Guri, just east of Seoul proper, and just about an hour train ride from the heart of the city.
Okay, but I'm wondering, did they ever say specifically that the hotel was in Seoul? Because, like, oh, I mean, okay, so thinking about it, logically, it might make sense to have his base of operations, you know, close by to where he was initially recruited. But, like, what if it's, like, outside the main metropolitan area where, you know, land prices are, in fact, a lot cheaper?
It's also located near some notable landmarks and attractions itself, including the Hongyan University Guri Hospital, the Guri City Hall, and even a new extension of the Seoul Subway Line 8. Now, I wish I could tell you the exact real estate value of this building, but it hasn't actually sold or been on the market in the real world for a long time. That being said, similar 4-story properties in the area have been sold for somewhere between 2.7 and 7 billion won. That's about 1.9 and $4.8 million. Given the location, we're going to say that this building cost Gi-hun.
God, again, that's in USD. God, again, everything is so messed up right now. Like, I'm pretty certain, like, the house I live in right now could go for, you know, at least $1.5 million in Canadian dollars. Like, I swear, living in Toronto is so expensive.
On that larger figure, so 7 billion won or $4.8 million. And that isn't even counting electricity or water costs. Or the fact that Gi-hun doesn't, like, let people stay as guests to make some money. It's just wild stuff. So with all of those numbers crunched, we come to the grand total of, drumroll please, 19,045,760,000 won, or $13,310,244. You know, honestly, I gotta say, that's actually much less than I expected. Out of Gi-hun's total 45.6 billion won prize, that's actually only about 44% of the total amount of cash Gi-hun took home from the Squid Game. So maybe he was living within his means. He's still not broke, and everything lines up, is what I would be saying, except for one crucial detail. We actually physically see how much money Gi-hun has, and the math here ain't mathing. Let me explain. Yeah, in season 2, we see Gi-hun's hoard of cash piled up in bands of 5 million won on a bed in his hotel.
Holy hell, you really did win.
And no doubt, that's a lot of cash.
So he took it all. Okay, so I guess that does answer the question of, like, why the bank wasn't saying anything after, you know, him making these massive purchases. But at the same time, like, why wouldn't you leave it in the bank so it could keep accumulating interest and stuff like that? Oh, God, okay.
Enough to make even Walter White proud.
I gotta do it, man.
But just how much cash is in here? This money, cube? Money rectangular prism? Whatever, is 7 bands of cash wide by 20 bands long by roughly 60 bands high. And as you can clearly see, part of the money stack here in the corner has been spent across 3 rows and 7 columns. Using the height of the affected money stacks, we can estimate that about 5% of this pile is gone. Man, that's a lot of numbers, but putting all of that information...
Geez, you really gotta love volume calculations. Because again, that huge corner is only 5%.
Together, we can say that this giant pile of cash is roughly 38,325,000,000 won, just a little bit more than $26 million. So, I don't know about you, but when I was looking at these numbers, I immediately saw that they weren't lining up. Gi-hun won 45.6 billion won, spent 19 billion, and yet still has over 38 billion left? That just cannot be the case.
I mean, again, he could have been investing. He could have actual sources of income, unless they've specifically said he hasn't been.
Unless Gi-hun broke his moral code to expand his wealth. And that could have a huge impact where this character's going in Season 3. All throughout the second season, we see Gi-hun grappling with survivor's guilt and the morality of having all of this cash. In fact, during Season 2's games, when asked if he'd already spent all the prize money, Gi-hun explains,
"That money doesn't belong to me. The ones who died in this place, that's their blood money."
he considers all of the cash he won to be blood money. He spent an entire year refusing to touch it because it would be a breach of his morality. In fact, he's downright ambivalent at the idea of doing anything with it. We see this in Season 1 when the bank holding his money wants to help him grow his billions.
And recently, our bank began offering these consultations for VIPs looking to expand their financial assets.
What does Gi-hun do with this offer? Nothing. He basically scoffs and leaves. But the numbers don't lie. He had to choose to invest this blood money and expand his own wealth. Like, I won't bore you by going through them all right here, but after looking into investments and percentages and all that, the numbers he'd need are even realistic. Regardless, even if expanding his hoard of wealth like Scrooge McDuck was an attempt to bring down the games, this was a stark shift in Gi-hun's character and morality that is foreshadowing something darker for this character. Like, sure, it might not seem like that big of a deal when it's just about Gi-hun making money with his money, even if he considers it blood money. And yet, don't know if you've noticed, but the more and more leadership Gi-hun has taken both inside and out of the games, the more and more he started leaning on the idea that the ends justify the means. And this is probably best shown by this interaction right here.
What you're saying is sacrifice a few for the good of the rest.
If we don't go after them now, we won't get another shot at leaving this place.
Yeah, Gi-hun is absolutely willing to let as many contestants die during that big fight in the night if it means they have a chance to take down the games. I don't know about you, but to me, that sounds an awful lot like something the frontman would say. Way more than it does something Season 1 Gi-hun would. And that, my friends, is the takeaway here. In the end, Gi-hun chose to sacrifice his morality, bit by bit, all for what he views as the greater good. And now that his little rebellion against the frontman has been stopped, that he's basically been taken prisoner, I wouldn't be surprised if he tries to break Gi-hun and turn him into the next frontman. And really, wouldn't that be a bittersweet ending for both this character and for the series? To have this good-hearted person with the best of intentions truly corrupted by the power and influence of money. Sounds exactly like what a brutal critique of capitalism this show is clearly going for. But hey, that's just a theory. A film theory. And cut. Up next.
So, I mean, well, what do you know? He isn't actually he isn't actually broke. I mean, I'm actually more. The biggest thing out of all the expenses was that building. Like, even accounting for even just claiming the fact, oh, it is in Seoul, even though I don't think there was any proof of that. Like, that was a lot cheaper than I thought it would actually be. It's amazing. It's funny. I know they say, like 70% of like lottery winners go broke within a year. But I really have to wonder, like, I know in the States they have like the Powerball winners, like where you can win like literally billions of dollars. And I'd really like to look into that to see like how many of those people like have gone broke or something like that. Because I have heard stories of stuff like that. At least for me, I would think that if I suddenly came into like a massive amount of money like that all at once, the first thing I would do was hire like some sort of like financial analyst or financial assistant just to help me put it away so that I don't go through it all stupidly fast. But yeah, so that's going to be it for now. So yeah, of course, as always, routes and videos linked in the description. If you haven't seen it for some reason, corner video lead to my game theory reaction. And yeah, with all that out of the way, I hope you guys liked. If you did, leave a like, subscribe if you have not, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.